that.
Yes,
So was the Clock Tower Collaborative buying yard signs in support of our four ward candidates?
no.
Where were these yard signs coming from?
I said that, and then I was pulled back by a couple of other people again saying that we are not doing any endorsements of candidates. We are not spending any money on candidates. We're not doing yard signs for candidates.
But in an email you sent out to your big list, you identified it's going to be a month of organizing and distributing yard signs. Those yard signs were yard signs that were coming from the candidates themselves,
We
correct?
did not do that.
And then I asked if you did it, but the yard signs you're referring here would not be yard signs purchased independently by Clock Tower Collaborative. It was yard signs that were being purchased by the candidates and would be obtained from the candidates themselves. And the four ward candidates actually were included on this email.
The statement in the email was what I thought was an intent to do that. I was told after the email went out that that was not our intent. So this was just simply my mistake.
So you sent a correcting email out, everybody, hey, forget the thing about yard signs. We're not coordinating. We're not working with candidates, even though I sent it to our four ward candidates.
No, we spoke specifically to the candidates and told them that.
Okay. But did you tell everybody else to whom you sent this email, we're not dealing with yard signs?
Only if they asked me.
You did not send a correcting email out.
I did not.
Then you go on and say, as a reminder, the candidates are. And again, you don't list all the candidates for Hudson City Council there, do you?
No,
You only listed our four ward candidates, to use your phrase earlier in that email, correct?
that's correct.
And you don't list all the candidates for school board. You only listed the three that you previously said represent the best interest of the school system and our kids. That's in exhibit 2. Those are the only candidates for school board you listed.
Once again, those things that I said in there were a mistake for that I was not correct in what we were doing in representing the collaborative, and I was corrected, and we did not do any of those things.
Well, you sent an email out, exhibit 2 on July 29th. Please meet our ward candidates, list 4 names, and you also list who you understand are school board candidates. You say that's not on behalf of the collaborative. It was me in my individual capacity, not collaborative. But then when you acknowledge you're sending out an email on behalf of the collaborative, undisputed that you're sending this out on behalf of the collaborative, you reference our 4 ward candidates as a reminder, here they are. But that's all wrong now is what you're saying.
I'm not disputing that I sent the emails out. I'm disputing that what I said was that Clock Tower Collaborative intention was in error. It was not the intention to follow through with that, and we did not follow through with that.
Well, you also talk about, and you didn't send this email that is exhibit 3 to all the candidates. You only sent it to quote unquote our candidate. Correct.
Correct.
And early in that email, the paragraph that starts, as mentioned in the spring, about having a get together for you to meet, quote, our 4 ward candidates and to have you question them so they can practice campaign interactions with constituents, etc. You're not inviting all the candidates to some practice session or even suggesting we bring all the candidates in. You're only bringing in our candidates, that is Clock Tower's candidates.
The Clock Tower Collaborative did not have any meet and greet sessions.
Now I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Exhibit 4. This indicates on the. Oh. Gotcha. Okay, good. This indicates it's from Hudson Life Magazine in November of 2023. What is Hudson Life Magazine?
It's a monthly magazine that gets sent to each household.
Within the city of Hudson.
Yes.
And I just got an excerpt from it. It indicates from page 23. Did the Clock Tower Collaborative do this advertisement in Hudson Life in its November of 2023
Yes.
edition? I see there, if you go towards the bottom, it says the following candidates for the November 7th local seats have also endorsed civility over confrontation and collaboration over control. You see that?
Yes.
And you list 4 candidates, our candidates, correct? For city council, and then 3 for school board.
I list 7 people. Yes.
Okay. Now, the only difference between the names on your email of August 6th and that list is Ward 3. It indicates Mike Donovan's a write-in candidate as opposed to Chris Macchione.
Yes.
Mr. Macchione did file as a candidate for Ward 3 in Hudson City.
I think so. I don't recall for certain, but I think so.
I think so. Okay. But then do you know if he withdrew?
I think he withdrew. I think he had some health problems and he decided he better not do this.
Okay, there weren't issues about posts that he was making online?
I wouldn't know that. I don't know anything about his campaign.
Okay. Was there any controversy occurring about posts that Mr. Macchione had made online during the campaign for city council?
I'm not aware.
Madam Chairwoman, I would object. We're pretty far afield from anything that's conceivably at issue before this commission.
I'm like kind of the foundation as to why we go from our candidate of Chris Macchione to our candidate of Mike Donovan, write-in candidate. Okay, I think that's the question. Yeah. So we're gonna, bear with me. Now you indicate here, the following candidates have also endorsed civility over confrontation and collaboration over control. Where did the Clock Tower Collaborative come up with that conclusion that these candidates have endorsed civility over confrontation, collaboration over control?
As a result of some survey questions that were sent to all the candidates.
Okay, well, and I just got this out. If I need time, I might print this out. Look at the survey that you sent out in early September. One question was, do you support funding for the city to commission a greenhouse gas emission survey? Remember that being on the survey.
Yes.
One question was, do you support a municipal owned and funded senior center, whether that be in a recreation center or city hall? Do you remember that being one of the survey questions?
I don't
Okay,
have this.
I
I'd
don't
like
have it here.
to, yeah, I get it.
I'd rather-
I just want to look over your
I don't,
shoulder.
I actually just got, I'd like to print it out and have it part of the record if need be. I can send it to Mr. Hughes if need be, but.
I just want to look
Okay, do you remember that question about supporting a municipal owned and funded senior center being one of the questions?
Yes.
One of the questions was, do you support smart signal technology and other technology to reduce traffic on our main roads, especially State Route 303 and Main Street?
Yes.
That was one of the questions.
Yes.
One of the questions was, if I'm not mistaken, do you support developing the area of land known as Phase 2? Would you support putting empty nester housing at this location? Do you remember that being one of the
Yes.
survey questions? One of the survey questions was, do you support diversifying development, both commercial and residential, in terms of the undeveloped land in Hudson?
Yes.
That was one of the questions. Let me ask the question first. I know you know what I'm going to ask. And the final universal question was, do you support additionally city investment for expansions of velocity broadband throughout Hudson?
Yes.
That was one of the questions. It's at the very top of what you.
Yeah, I know. Oops, sorry.
No. Okay,
you-
They had a
oh,
more
yeah,
specific
yeah.
question. That's all the mailer I've got. And then you have ward-specific questions, one for Ward 1, one for Ward 2, correct?
That's correct.
And one of the one for Ward 1 indicates was, do you support the city of Hudson advocating support for businesses and filling the empty storefronts on Main Street? Do you remember that being for Ward 1?
I don't really remember those questions specifically.
Okay.
I didn't write the questions.
I'll tell you what, that I can help you there. Number doesn't here. What? This 5, okay. With that. They hand you what's been marked as exhibit 5. Do you recognize this as one of the mailers that Clock Tower Collaborative put out during the course of the city council election
Yes,
in November 23? And actually, if you look at the second page, it has various universal questions, some of which we just went over. So those are the questions taken from the survey.
yes,
And on the first page, it indicates ward-specific questions. You see that?
yes.
And those were the questions that were put out on the survey to the individual candidates in the wards. So where in these surveys do the people come out and quote unquote endorse civility over confrontation and collaboration over control, as stated in Exhibit 4, that being the Hudson Life article?
This was not something that I did. I was involved in
You say this, okay, Exhibit 5, the
Yeah,
fire.
exhibit 5. I took the information that was gleaned from the responses. I never saw the responses. I wasn't involved in that. And took the information that they gave me to incorporate into this letter. So I can't answer the question because I didn't do the survey. All I did was I got the information from the people that interpreted the survey and put it in this letter.
So somebody told you that these candidates and only these candidates, quote unquote, endorsed civility over confrontation and collaboration over control.
That's correct.
But at any time, did Clock Tower Collaborative say to the candidates, do you endorse or support civility over confrontation and collaboration over control?
I can't answer that. I wasn't the one that did that and communicated with.
Well, you were the primary leader of Clock
I
Tower.
was the one that printed it and I was in charge of printing and mailing.
But you're not aware of Clock Tower ever asking the candidates, do you endorse civility over confrontation and collaboration over control?
I can't say that anybody did or didn't. I wasn't involved in that.
Looking for your Ward 3 mail.
Yeah, I think I got extras.
Okay, thanks. Part of the problem, I did not get discovery responses, so I'm kind of playing from that. We're gonna, oops, all right. Ms. Quinn was gonna use this and so we'll just keep it as his marking, which is exhibit E. This is E. This is being marked exhibit E because apparently your council's going to be using it. Now, this was also a mailer that Clock Tower Collaborative put out,
Yes.
and were you involved in preparation of this?
No.
But I want to clarify with what Clock Tower is doing as the leader, from the leader of Clock Tower. He indicated that Mr. Macchione had withdrawn as a candidate from Ward 3 and that there was a write-in candidate, Michael Donovan. And so in this, can you explain, what the purpose was for Clock Tower putting this out, talking about the write-in candidate? There is a write-in candidate. Here's how you do a write-in, et cetera.
Yeah, so first of all, there is no name on this. You said that we said that Mike Donovan was a write-in candidate. That was not the intent. The intent of this was to educate Ward 3 voters what their options were. It doesn't say anything about, we want you, we endorse you to write in this candidate's name. There was nothing on the ward candidate ballot that would explain a write-in candidate. And so we felt, the Clock Tower Collaborative felt that there was some education for the people in this ward on what their options were. So that's what the purpose of this. And we specifically said there will not be, and this doesn't have any names. We're not endorsing names. We're just saying get out and vote. And if you want to vote for the people that are written there, vote for them. If you want to vote for the write-in candidate, vote for them.
Have you ever been involved in elections?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. Do you realize that one of the biggest challenges for a write-in candidate is people to know how to effectuate a write-in vote on the ballot?
Objection, Madam Chairwoman, there's no foundation for
I ask her if
that.
she knows it. She can say, I know it or I don't know it.
Go ahead.
I'm not a political animal. I don't know politics. I was always on the management side. I'm not a political animal. I don't know that kind of stuff.
But this thing says. This thing simply talks about and advocates how to do a write-in candidate, right? How to fill out a write-in candidate.
Yes.
It doesn't say, hey, there's also another candidate running for Ward 3 whose name is already on the ballot that you can consider. Well, I'm not going to tell you his name. You're just doing one thing. Here's how you help a write-in candidate, correct?
I would exclude the word help. Here's what a write-in candidate, here's how you do a write-in candidate. Not you should do it, not that you could do it, not that there's other names. It's an educational piece.
So you're saying you could do it. You're telling them that, hey, you can do a write-in candidate for Ward 3, right?
That's correct.
You just said you're not saying you could do it. You are telling them they can do it.
I'm telling
And
them,
here's how to do it.
I'm not telling them they should do it. I'm telling them if they want to, here's how.
So I want to go back to Exhibit 2, which is the July 29th. I'm kind of going to go back and forth between that and Exhibit 3, the August 6th email. On Exhibit 2, you said this wasn't for collaborative. I had my individual hat on, even though I'm kind of sending it to the same list as Exhibit 3. You say down there, we are planning a gathering of our large group, you all, to meet the candidates and run them through their paces.
Yes.
That's in Exhibit 2. Then you go to Exhibit 3 and you're saying, we want to have a get together for all of you to meet our 4 ward candidates and to have you question them so they can practice their campaign interactions.
Yes.
You're talking about doing the same thing in Exhibit 2 and Exhibit 3, correct? With respect to that.
And I would repeat what I said to you earlier, that the intent that I thought the Clock Tower Collaboratives were going to do was, I was told we were not going to do those things. So the intent that I issued on Exhibit 3 more or less mirrors what I thought we were gonna do, which is Exhibit 2. And then I stood corrected, that that was not the Clock Tower Collaborative's intention, that would have been my individual intention. The Clock Tower Collaborative did not follow through on any of those items.
You can go to the second page of Exhibit 2. The email you said was not sent out on behalf or as for Clock Tower Collaborative, but in your personal capacity. Second to last paragraph. Can you read that paragraph, please?
One
One that starts one item. Yes, please.
One item that we are hoping to do is to get some mailings out. That's the most expensive part of campaigning in support of our ward candidate positions. If you have capacity to support the collaborative and the mailings, please consider a donation. You can mail a check to the Clock Tower Collaborative, and thanks. These mailings will take some of the costs off the back of the candidates for sure.
This has nothing, this email, July 29th, has nothing to do with Clock Tower Collaborative.
This was my opinion of what we were going to do. And I sent it out as me, an individual, that this was what I thought the Clock Tower Collaborative was going to do.
You said one item that we are hoping to do, the plural, we, not one thing that I'm hoping to do as Jane Howington. It's one thing that we are hoping to do in support of our ward candidates. But you're saying that's solely you, not Clock Tower,
Correct.
even though you use we.
It's my interpretation of what I thought Clock Tower Collaborative wanted to do. I stood corrected. We were not doing that. We didn't follow through with any of the political advocacy programs.
Well, you did put mailings out.
They
Well,
were,
Clock Tower is that.
they were educational mailings, not political mailings.
Few more things I don't know. I think I need to get my exhibit labeled. Yep.
What is this? This one of mine?
No, it's mine.
Oh,
Thanks. Well, here they are. No, what is it? Excellent.
Which one's this one?
I got it.
Including checks or just?
I got it. Does every member have one? Yeah, it was an extra. I got them. I sent them up in Toronto. Okay, I'm just going to get this in, just indicating that these would be the complete bank statements for Clock Tower Collaborative.
Just complainants, exhibit 6.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay. I just want to get that in. You can see that I've not added it up, total contributions, but we can look at that and we can look at checks as well to get that there, but that's so long as that's in the record there. Now, I think your attorney indicated that Clock Tower has since terminated.
correct.
It's terminated itself with the Ohio Secretary of State, correct?
Yes.
And if you go to the last page on Exhibit 6, indicates that the balance as of October 31st, 2024 was about just over $2,650. You see that?
That's correct.
Okay. What became of that remaining balance plus or minus.
You're looking at the gentleman to your left. That's what we're using to pay the legal fees for this complaint.
Okay, but Clock Tower when did Clock Tower terminate itself?
November, October of 24, I think.
You're gonna get into that, aren't you?
Do it.
I'll let you put that in the record. Okay. 6.
Mr. Hartman, exhibit 7 or?
7 is what I got. Yes, thank you. Got it all. I'm handing you what's marked as exhibit 7, which again were records obtained from the First National Bank, which is the bank for Clock Tower. This indicates that on November 15th, 2024, there was you withdrew or transferred the remaining $2,647 out of this Clock Tower account.
That's correct.
Where did it go?
It went into a CD.
Okay,
It's in the same bank. It's in a CD, and it is there, and it's kept there. We dissolved Clock Tower Collaborative, so I wanted to close that account. We had this amount of money left, so I put it into a CD because I knew that there was a hearing pending and that I would need money for legal representation.
so this went into a CD in your personal name with your social security number.
I don't really recall whether it was my name or whether it was Clock Tower Collaborative.
So you kept that, but you kept it, why would you, if it could go from one Clock Tower account to another Clock Tower account?
Well, one was a bank account and the other is a CD.
Okay, what was the term of the CD?
It's due through August of this year.
So you've not been able to draw against the CD?
I used my own personal money to pay for the attorney, and I will reimburse myself once the CD is available.
So you're gonna take money from Clock Tower to reimburse yourself,
For legal expenses for the Clock Tower Collaborative.
but you're also a named party in this case. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
One moment, please. Ma'am. Yeah. No further questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair. Ms. Howington, so we're clear, Clock Tower Collaborative is a named respondent in this case, is that right?
That's correct.
Along with yourself?
That's correct.
There was a lot of questions from Mr. Hartman about things that you'd plan to do or hope to do, or things about yard signs and candidate forums, meet and greet type of things. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Let's be clear. Did Clock Tower Collaborative have anything to do with circulating yard signs?
No.
Objection leading.
That was it. Did the entity do X or not? That's not
Suggest-
leading. Please.
No.
Did Clock Tower Collaborative, we looked at exhibits 2 and exhibits 3 are the emails
Yes.
that you went through with Mr. Hartman, and he talked about the references there to meeting candidates. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Let's be clear. Did those meetings occur or not occur?
No.
Mr. Hartman walked you through a series of checks that were paid to the Clock Tower Collaborative. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And he showed you a number where the memo line referenced is Lapido Lapidi Carino. Do you recall all that?
Yes,
On any of those checks, did you complete the memo line on any of those checks?
no,
Are you aware of anybody on behalf of the Clock Tower Collaborative completing the memo line on any of those checks?
no,
Did you or anybody on behalf of the Clock Tower Collaborative tell the contributors to include Ms. Lapido Carino's name on those checks?
no,
Did the Clock Tower Collaborative make any contribution to Ms. Lapidi Carino's campaign?
no,
Did the Clock Tower Collaborative make any contributions to any candidates?
no,
Go back to the beginning a little bit, I'm filling some gaps here. Clock Tower Collaborative was organized as a not-for-profit corporation, is that correct?
yes,
May I approach, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Still got it, or did you lose
Which
one?
one?
A.
This is.
Is the articles. Got it?
I got it.
Several extras. I would go with. And I'll do B as well while I'm up here.
Keep the solution.
Yeah, B some distillation. Everybody,
there's,
For the record, what makes it number?
A and B. Ms. Hallington, I've handed you what I've marked as exhibits A and exhibit B. Let's look at exhibit A first. And if you look at the second page of that document, see in bold, what's the title of it?
initial articles of incorporation.
And it says the first article, name of corporation, Clock Tower Collaborative. Do you see that?
Yes,
And then down a little bit, you see third, it says purpose for purpose for which corporation is formed. Read that to us if you would, please.
to educate and engage more residents in the democratic process, to get them to go to the polls and vote on issues within their communities.
Thank you. Now, you also spoke with Mr. Hartman about the Clock Tower Collaborative being dissolved. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Take a look at exhibit B as in boy, if you would, please. And if you look at the second page of exhibit B,
yes,
what is this document called?
certificate of dissolution.
And there are two file stamps on this document. What are they?
Uh,
Received stamps. Do you see those?
Yeah, one is from the Ohio Secretary of State dated October 22nd. The other one is dated September 16th from the Ohio Secretary of State.
Were you involved in the decision to dissolve Clock Tower Collaborative?
Yes,
Okay, tell us why you made the decision strike that. Tell us why Clock Tower Collaborative was dissolved.
well, the main reason we wanted to form a 501c4 was to do fundraising so we could use those funds for articles and educating and helping to get the vote out and things like that. We determined after a number of articles, we determined that we were not going to do any more fundraising. We were going to continue to do articles, but we're not going to use fundraising mechanism as a way to do that. Without a fundraising mechanism, there was no reason to be a nonprofit.
And when you say articles, can you explain or describe what you mean by that? What type of articles you're referring to?
I call them articles, but they're the same as in Exhibit 4, which are basically, they call them advertisements, but they're They're publications, they're things, articles in these monthly magazines.
Talked a little bit about, talked a little bit about fundraising, so I'm gonna ask you, may I approach, Madam Chair? Let's say July 20th. If I got
No, I
it.
got it.
Oh.
Thank you.
Anyway. Yeah, one of the extras I gave it to you. Take a look, if you would, please, Ms. Howington. Do you recognize Exhibit C?
Yes, this is our fundraising letter,
Okay, and what's the date on this?
July of 23.
Okay. And what is, read the first paragraph, if you would, please.
We are writing today collectively on behalf of the Clock Tower Collaborative, a nonprofit organization that we have recently joined. The Collaborative has a simple mission to promote a more civil Hudson and to engage more residents in voting beginning this fall. With fewer than 30% of our residents voting in our local elections, we must do better.
Thank you. I'd also like you to also, if you look at the fourth paragraph down, it starts the Clock Tower Collaborative will. Do you see that?
Yes.
Can you read that paragraph for us, please?
The Clock Tower Collaborative will work to educate residents on the issues so they feel more informed, engaged, and confident to vote. Our civility and get the vote out messages will be holistic for all elections and issues, not just candidate elections. We will also be there for school board elections, school levies, and special elections with a constant focus on education that helps engage all of Hudson.
Now, if you look on the second page of Exhibit C, I see your name, I see the name George Roth and Bill Woolridge. You see that?
Yes,
And this is not, this particular copy is not signed or anything, right? You see that?
correct.
Does it appear, as best as you recall, to be the same or substantially the same as what was sent out by the Clock Tower Collaborative? in
Yeah.
or About July 2023?
Yes, absolutely.
Mention any candidate names in here?
No,
Describe any hot button political issues or political issues at all in the city of Hudson in Exhibit C?
no,
Direct you to what Mr. Hartman previously marked as Exhibit 4. Yeah, that's one. This is the,
Hudson Life.
it's, mine is double-sided. I'm not sure if everybody did. See, Charlie.
this was from Mr. Hartman's number 4.
Like everybody has Exhibit 4. This was the Hudson Life advertisement, or I think you called it an article.
Yes,
And what, how frequently or how often does Hudson Life magazine come out?
once a month,
Okay, and which issue did this document, Exhibit 4, which issue did it appear in?
November of 23.
Okay. Now, you went through this a little bit with Mr. Hudson, or excuse me, Mr. Hartman. And it says, a bit of the ways down, it says, the following candidates for the November 7th local seats have also endorsed civility over confrontation and collaboration over control. Do you see that?
Yes,
And it lists those names. Tell us, if you would, please, how did it come to be that these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 individuals were named on the article that appears as Exhibit 4?
There was a combination of responses to the questionnaire, which we've already discussed, which I was not personally involved with those questions or communicating with the candidates. It also took into the count, to the best of my recollection, the candidate debates, which happened, I think, in late September or October. There were, I think, a number of them. I wasn't involved in those debates. I don't know if this information came out as a result of that. This was just what I was given as far as agreeing and working with the goals and the mission and the vision of the collaborative.
And you talked with Mr. Hartman about surveys. Was there one survey or multiple surveys, as best as you recall?
I think there was one survey, and I think then there was a follow-up because we weren't getting, some of the candidates weren't responding to it, but I don't know if that was the same survey or not.
Whether there was one or more than one of the same survey, was it sent to, for example, the complainant, Mr. Roofer?
I believe all the survey information went to all of the candidates.
You need
No,
another one?
no, I
I gave it to you. It's not later.
Make sure which one I got. Yeah, I got it.
And then the other one will be Jane.
So make sure.
Yeah,
Okay, that one. Gotcha.
Madam Chair, man.
Yeah, all right. You're just so difficult.
I really am. I'm very needy. These are my last ones, F and G.
He went that way.
You do not.
He went that way. He hasn't come back yet. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Just before you go.
Yes, sir.
Is there a D?
No, I'm gonna skip D. My D became complainants for, so.
Okay, you got that
Yeah.
back? Okay, that's the only reason I asked, is because I figured I'd ask while you're, before you get started back.
Right. Yep.
G or F?
There is no D. There is no exhibit D. That's why you can't find it. My exhibit D became Mr. Hartman's exhibit 4. So I just, rather than have two exhibits with the same, or two of the same exhibit, I just went with this.
They're just so loud.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Okay. Ms. Hamilton, I've handed you two exhibits. Exhibit F is in Frank and G is in Giraffe. Can you tell us what, let's look at exhibit F first. Can you tell us what this is?
This is another article or advertisement that appeared in the Hudson Life in the January 24 edition of January Life. Just really giving more information to the residents on where the Clock Tower Collaborative was headed and what type of communication we'd have.
And if you look maybe right about halfway down, there's a single sentence paragraph that just says, with that in mind, here's what you can expect for us in 2024. Do you see that?
With that in mind, yes.
Okay, and there are four things throughout the rest of that page that are listed in bold. Can you read the bold headings for us, please?
More communication, more focus on engaging residents at the polls, more focus on nonpartisanship, and a continued focus on being holistic.
Okay, are there any references to any candidates in this document, Exhibit F?
No,
Are there any references to any office holder, political office holders in Exhibit F?
no,
Any references to any ballot issues or hot button political issues in Exhibit F?
no,
What's you said, I think you told us that Hudson Life is a monthly magazine, is that right?
That's correct.
And this is in January of 2024.
That's correct.
Was there an election in the city, within the city of Hudson? Was there an election coming up in or around January of 2024?
No,
2024 is presidential election year, right?
that's correct.
Okay, so the primary was held in March that year.
Correct.
Do you recall, as you sit here, any substantial offices that were being up for election in the city of Hudson at the March 24 primary?
Not to my recollection.
I asked you to take a look at the other document I handed you, which was Exhibit G. And can you tell us what Exhibit G is?
Exhibit G is another article from the Clock Tower Collaborative. This exhibit indicates a proof on the top. That was just because it was the proof that I got back from the printer, but this is the final copy.
So what ultimately appeared in the Hudson Life is the same or substantially the same as Exhibit G?
It's identical except for the word proof.
All right. And broadly speaking, what is this Exhibit G about?
It's an educational piece to the community to give them information about what's going on with the city's comprehensive plan update.
Do you recall when Exhibit G ran in the Hudson Life magazine?
I think it was March of 24.
Again, does Exhibit G here reference any kind of candidates?
No,
Any kind of issues other than discussion of what a comprehensive plan is?
no.
If you would, please, at Mr. Hartman's Exhibit number 2, complainant's Exhibit number 2. This is the July 29th email. On the second page, or perhaps the reverse of Exhibit 2, second paragraph reads, a nonprofit advocacy organization has been created. The name is the Clock Tower Collaborative. Do you see that?
Yes,
If all the recipients of this email were part of, affiliated with, associates of the Clock Tower Collaborative, can you think of a reason you would need to tell them, hey, the Clock Tower Collaborative has been created?
no,
Wouldn't they already know?
yes.
Look at Exhibit number 5, if you would, please. This was the mailer that was sent out on behalf of or by the Clock Tower Collaborative, right?
Yes,
Okay, and look at the second page, for example. And let's take, for example, let's take Ward 4, for example. Do you see it's got candidates across the top?
yes,
And for Ward 4, we see Mike Bird and Scott Roofer.
yes,
See that? And it has this list of, over on the left, it has this list of various issues. Do you
yes,
see that? And I think those were the same or similar to what Mr. Hartman read in his, in the survey.
yes,
See you?
yes,
Okay. So the first one, for example, do you support funding for the city to commission a greenhouse gas emissions survey? And you say that Mr. Bird agrees with / supports the issue and Mr. Roofer did not respond to survey. Do you see that?
Correct.
Is that in your mind telling anybody to vote for or against Mr. Byrd or Mr. Roofer?
It was not our intent to have this be an advocacy for or against either one.
If I, for example, were a Hudson resident and I were opposed to funding for the city to commission a greenhouse gas emission survey, this would not lead me to want to vote for Mr. Byrd, would it?
Correct.
Believe I'm winding down here, ma'am. I appreciate your patience. We've talked throughout this afternoon, both with Mr. Hart and myself, a series of kind of documents, mailings, communications that the Clock Tower Collaborative put out during its lifespan, right?
Yes.
The documents that we've discussed either with Mr. Hartman or with myself are those, to the best of your knowledge, all of the communications involved, let me start over. The documents that we've gone through with Mr. Hartman and myself, are those all of the public communications that the Clock Tower Collaborative put out?
Yes.
At any point, and I think you told us that you were, as involved or more involved than anybody else with the collaborative. Is that true?
Yes, I acted as the coordinator.
Was there ever at any point in time any intention by yourself or, to your knowledge, anybody on behalf of the collaborative for the collaborative to promote anybody's individual candidacy?
No.
What, in your words, was the goal or the purpose, the reason that the Clock Tower Collaborative was established?
The base was that under 30% of our voters, registered voters, were turning out to vote in local elections, and there were what I would consider as a city manager, ex-city manager, high stakes that people should be not relinquishing their vote and let somebody else decide how the resources of the community should be made. It wasn't so much I should advocate for what the resources should be given to. It was that everybody's voice needs to be heard. That was the initial concept. The secondary concept was that it's a very much like our national politics. It's become very divisive, and people are tending to back away from involvement as opposed to being educated and being involved. And the few of us that were involved felt that maybe through education could be reversed.
Now, you told us that's what the purpose was, the intent, the two intentions were. During the 6 or so months that the Clock Tower Collaborative was actively engaged in, for lack of a better term, business or operations, do you think that the collaborative upheld those goals or furthered those goals?
Yes, absolutely, because as evidenced by the emails that have been gone over with a fine-tooth comb, whatever my mistakes were in interpretation, they were corrected. So if I was getting away from that neutral educational purpose, I was being brought back into the fold.
I appreciate your time, ma'am. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I have no further questions.
Good. Are there any questions of the commission members?
I get some redirect? Which is normal. Can I help you follow this?
Sure.
Just one thing in terms, you can go to Exhibit F, which you identified as an advertisement that was in Hudson Life in January of 2024. I think you could acknowledge, by this time, the election had already occurred in the city council and the school board in November of 23, correct?
That's correct.
You're also aware that by this time, the complaint had been filed against you and the Clock Tower Collaborative and with the Elections Commission that we are here on today.
That's not really true because the deadline for submitting things is well a month beforehand.
Okay, so it's well a month beforehand. Okay, so let's talk about the November, before, I believe it is. The November advertisement that you put in for Clock Tower. So you're saying that had to be prepared a month before, i.e. late September, early October.
Early October.
Okay. But you did a separate survey in October, correct? You
Yeah.
sent out more surveys. So that survey didn't play into those candidates who endorsed civility, et cetera, correct?
Well, all of the surveys were done by the end of September. That article wasn't put in until October.
Did you sworn testimony that you did not send a survey out in October?
No, I said that the survey went out in either August or September. There may have been a second follow-up in September. I wasn't sure because I didn't do that. But all of the survey results were back by the end of September.
So your sworn testimony is, when was this, January 2024 advertisement submitted to Hudson Light for publication?
Early December.
Okay. And want to look at the dissolution paperwork. That is Exhibit B. And go to the fourth page. Okay, see the top there, there's a box marked off with an X. That says the resolution of dissolution was adopted by the directors. Do you see that?
Yes,
You see that box is marked.
yes,
You know who marked that box?
I did.
Okay. When did the directors meet and adopt that resolution?
We met, George Roth, Bill Wooldridge and myself met, I think in September, when I came to them and said, what do we want to do? Do we want to continue with Clock Tower Collaborative? Are we gonna have another fundraiser? That was when everybody decided we didn't want to do any fundraising anymore, and they directed me to move forward with the dissolution.
The next box that is marked there indicates the resolution of dissolution was adopted. Box marked, it says, when the corporation has been adjudged bankrupt or has made a general assignment for the benefit of the creditors. Do you see that?
Yes,
Who marked that box?
I did.
Okay. Was Clock Tower Corporation adjudicated to be a bankrupt?
No,
And then, so all the assignments went to its creditors,
pardon me.
but you sent money out to its creditors, except you maintained $2,700 and some dollars in some CD.
That was our balance,
Right.
yes.
Final thing, you said, I think I heard you correctly, that you had no intent to support any candidate with Clock Tower.
As the Clock Tower Collaborative,
Right.
yes.
Notwithstanding in Exhibit 3, you make multiple references to our candidates.
As I've mentioned, that was an individual opinion of what was going to happen. That was told subsequently that was not what the Clock Tower Collaborative was going to stand for.
And so is it just a coincidence that those are the same, that the R4 ward candidates are the same candidates that return your survey? Is it just a coincidence that those are the same four candidates who you who Clock Tower advertises in Hudson Life in November, these are the ones who have endorsed civility and commitment, even though they've never given a formal endorsement.
The survey was sent to all of the candidates for the election, all of them, not just these. It was not our choice that people decided not to respond to it.
Where did you send those who did not respond? To where did you send it?
I have no idea.
Are you where you sent it to their governmental email accounts and asking them, trying to get them to conduct political business using a government email account?
Object, Madam Chairwoman, both the foundation, she just said she doesn't know.
I'm asking her if that, does that refresh your recollection?
I
Mr.
wasn't involved in that. I've said that before. I wasn't involved in that. It wasn't I that sent that out.
But you were coordinating stuff.
I printed it. Yes.
You were coordinating. You were the leader of the Clock Tower. You were
No, I was
coordinating
a
it.
coordinator. I was one of several.
Who was the leader then of Clock Tower?
We didn't have a lead, but we have a collaborative.
Thank you.
Nothing further, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Seeing that there is nothing further here, are there any questions of the commission members or the executive director for the witness?
I have a few, Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure, Commissioner, go ahead.
Hollington, good afternoon.
Hi.
So let me ask you this. I guess I'm a little confused. Were you doing political activity during this time also separate from the collaborative?
As an individual,
Yes.
other than I did political act. I did political involvement. I had yard signs in my yard as an individual.
Okay. Did you do any coordination with any of these candidates or their campaign?
Not for their campaigns, no.
Did you at any time talk to these folks?
The candidates?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And in what capacity was that?
Most of the time I spoke with them was in my individual capacity, with the exception of fundraising. We made sure that they knew that the fundraising was not going to the candidates. There would be no donations to candidates. We weren't going to buy yard signs or any of that.
Yeah, you testified that there were no yard signs, right?
That's correct. No.
There were no mailings at all. Okay. Who is on exhibit B? Or is it A? I'm sorry. And who's Robin Jones? Your counsel or?
No, that is a person that works for the registered agents, which is who we employed to file our paperwork. So that address of North Canton is their office address.
And prior to this collaborative, have you ever been involved in a 501c before?
No,
Did not? They have one laws. Bear with me. If you will. Madam Chair, I'll.
Yeah, that's all.
And again, you said your primary activity was what during this time with the collaborative?
education and getting the vote out, as far as just to go out and vote, not who to vote for, just go out and vote, get the vote out. Education, civility, those were the things that we really stood for.
Collaborative do anything other than that?
No,
Is there any other activities in the community?
No.
Fundraisers?
no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Questions?
Madam Chair. Ms. Howington, thank you for
Yeah.
being here.
Thank you.
It's difficult to sit in that seat for a while. And so, thank you, and thank you to for your service to the people of Hudson through your time as the city manager and being involved in the process.
Thank you.
One of the things that has been troubling to me, and I had to go, search my recollection because it had been a while since the preliminary review I remember the email that was sent on Saturday, July 29th. One of the things I recall, I underlined it during our preliminary review, and I underlined it again today. Was on the back, it talks about one benefit to the C4, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but is that donations are not limited and the donor names are not published or reported. Then the last paragraph talks about mailings, and I know we've talked a lot about some mailings today, and it talks about these mailings will take some of the costs off of the backs of the candidates for sure. And that's a holdup for me because the backs of all candidates, could you zoom in on that a little bit and explain that to me on what maybe the mailings did take place, but explain to me what you were thinking on these mailings will take some of the cost off of the backs of the candidates for sure.
In talking with various people that have gone through elections, that have held political office, one of the things that I was told was, and this was this was way before any of this happened, but that probably one of the most expensive things for candidates to have to deal with is the cost of sending mailings out. And so the idea was, well, if we could use these funds to help with mailings, that would, and it wasn't specific what kind of mailings or to whom those mailings were either representing or going to. It was just generally, this might be something we could do to help defray cost for candidates. Again, that was said, no, we're not doing that. We're not spending any of our funds for any candidates or any of the mailings that wouldn't just be neutral, educational. So again, perhaps my mistake at what I was trying to interpret, and from what I was hearing that, how could we help get the community to understand? And to a point, in a perfect world, take this survey results. In a perfect world, if all of those candidates would have responded, it would have been a nice item for all of the candidates because it listed specific issues that were going on in Hudson at the time, and then what their opinion was so it wasn't advocating for any one person, but it could have been used for all of the candidates if they chose to use it as a way to get their message out.
Thank you very
Mhm.
much.
Very good. Are there any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Mr.
The survey questions, the one, was this from this mailing? How would you have answered those questions? Do you support those things or not?
That was something that we spent quite a lot of time talking about before this was developed, was that it would be the best thing for us to be able to give each of the candidates a space to say what they felt or not. And the volunteers that we had working with this that had more communications or marketing skills said that was going to be something that was really hard to quantify, and that it would be better to just have a yes or no, check or not check box. But the one thing that we tried to do was give all of the candidates questions that were current issues or current discussions within the city so that they could always expand on those in their own marketing material or their own debate forums that were happening. And also the League of Women Voters usually issues a much more, like a several page list of questions with space for answers. So we didn't feel we needed to replicate that. We just wanted to get the information on, these are issues that are pertinent to to the city currently at the current time. And this is opinion. We had no idea that we would get very few responses or that we would get so many responses that were non-responses.
You.
My personal opinion or?
Yeah.
No, I don't have an opinion about all of these. I don't know anything about the greenhouse gas emission question, really.
I ask that because if I received this, now granted, I'm a little bit biased in my industry. This is a very typical format for laying out. Is it features, right? Check, 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 check. My product has all the features that you want, and my competition has very few, right?
I,
This is that format. And if I very much interpret this as advocating for these candidates based on the layout. That may or not have been the intent, but I mean, you know, you got the next page. You've got, you know, check marks throughout the whole thing
Yeah.
for certain candidates in the ward, right? You also break it down by each ward, right? You don't like generalize. These are important questions to Hudson. You break it down by each ward and each candidate in each ward. I guess I have a challenge at this point with the format, and perhaps you can help me understand the design of this, because I definitely come away thinking this is trying to promote these candidate slates
so,
and to get out and vote for them, right?
Yeah.
Get out and vote.
so the reason that they're, to the best of my knowledge, the reason that they are specific on page 2 of the wards is that people can only vote in the ward they live in, which is typical, but we wanted to make sure people understood which candidates were in which wards and then what their votes were. The actual questions on page 2, they're not my questions. They're like the greenhouse gas emission question. That was something that was going on at the time with the Environmental Awareness Committee, I believe. And I think that they were talking to city council, and I think it was an issue of, do we want to allocate costs for this? Is this important? I'm not even really aware of what that is. I don't have an opinion about that. So it's not, this is one of my hot buttons, you know, so on. I'll skip to another one. There's, the second white box talks about phase 2. Phase 2 was a very, controversial issue in the city about what should be put in there. And a lot of people were saying empty nester housing, but a lot of people weren't. A lot of people were saying mixed use or nothing, or there wasn't really an opinion about it. So I think the empty nester housing question was more geared toward what's the housing situation in the city. And it's long been that there's been very little varied housing stock toward the empty nester housing. So that wasn't really whether I agreed with it or not. I don't have any opinion about it necessarily. But it was an issue that was going on. On page 1, we went to people within those wards to find out what people were talking about in the wards or what the issues seemed to be in those wards. Again, I don't have an opinion about those, and I wasn't even involved in developing these. They were more developed by various community volunteers that happen to live in those wards asking their neighbors or whatever, what are the issues, or going through council and saying what seem to be the issues in each of these wards.
Thank you.
Very good. Are there any questions?
Miss, if we could go back to complainants exhibit 3, which is that August 6th email. I think you said you sent this on behalf of the collaborative.
Mhm.
You mentioned a couple of times that you were either pulled back or corrected. What in this email went too far?
What in the email went too far was, toward the end where it says September will be a month of organizing and distributing yard signs, which that's true. We aren't going to organize and dispense those. And I think that's one of those areas where it could be interpreted that the Clock Tower Collaborative was going to organize and distribute yard signs, which that. So I was told, don't say those things. That's not what we're gonna do. We're not supporting, we're not helping and so on. So that's where I get pulled back when I say things like that.
Other than the yard sign comment, was it communicated to you that anything else went too far and that you needed to pull back or correct?
Well, the conversation about getting together to meet the candidates, once again, that was not going to be a Clock Tower Collaborative thing. If there was an individual that wanted to do a meet and greet, that's fine, but it wasn't going to be a function of the collaborative. We were not going to advocate in that form.
Anything else other than those 2 lines that went too far you were corrected about?
Not that I know of.
Who corrected you?
Mostly it would have been Bill and George.
So when you say Bill, who's that?
Bill Wooldridge and George Roth were 2 of the folks that from the very beginning when we had our small
The
meeting.
other signatory.
Yeah.
So you said mostly. Was there anybody else?
There were some volunteers, and there were some people that were involved in it or that had donated money that kind of called me on the carpet and just said, hey, wait a minute, I didn't think we were going to do this kind of thing. So
what specifically did Bill and George say to you?
this is meant to be, and George was probably the most emphatic in this is not any kind of political organization. This is an education and advocacy group, and we need to stay neutral in that vein.
Did George, who wanted to maintain that position, was he fully in support of complainants exhibit 4, which was the Hudson Life November 23 letter?
In that letter, there was a lot of discussion on that one, that end part. I think that there was probably 5 or 6 edits to it, drafts to it. Some of them were including it and some of them weren't including it. George was very, again, emphatic that there was not to be an endorsement. And I think that probably this would probably go as close to the line as you could get in looking at it. And I don't think that was our intent when we said it. But then once it was printed, we kind of looked at it and said, well, yeah, it could look like that. That wasn't our intent. Again, we're not endorsing. We're just saying that these are people that have same values.
If George was kind of a hardliner on non-advocacy for candidates, following this November 23 publication, did he communicate any concerns to you about it?
After it was published?
Yeah.
Well, I think that that's what happened was after it was published and we saw it in that vein, it looked a little bit like little close to the edge. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't do that again.
So what did he say to you about it?
I think that the conversation was how people are going to interpret that. And could it be interpreted as an endorsement of the candidates? Or could it be, or would it be interpreted as emphasizing what our values were and who we felt were responding to our values?
That's all.
Ms. Howard, thank you for being here. My question for you, I see the two communications and when you talked about, you just mentioned Bill and I forgot the other one's name.
George,
Did anyone else send out any correspondence via email or were you the only person that kind of communicated with the larger group or the city, the people that were kind of in support of the issues that you guys were most concerned about? Do you need me to reframe that? 'Cause
No,
that's a
I-
lot of words.
no, I get what you're saying, but because this was a very kind of loose collaborative thing and I was kind of the coordinator, most of the communications went out through me. But for instance, with the survey, we had other volunteers that put that together. So the two or three of them probably corresponded via email on that particular thing. I don't really recall that there were any other big mass communications.
So pretty much after these two emails, and as you stated, you were kind of pulled back, you kind of stopped communicating via email because
Absolutely,
Yeah.
there were no other emails after that. All we did was do our articles, do our those kinds of things, and those were small groups.
thank you.
Go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Ms. Howington, thank you again for
Sure.
sitting through this hearing. I appreciate your discussion around the exhibit. I think it was number 5, the
The survey?
survey. Does your newspaper do any kind of a survey with candidates prior to the election?
I'm trying to remember the Hudson Weekly I think they're still in existence, but they don't deliver. I think they're just online. The League of Women Voters does one, and I think the League of Women Voters does it in conjunction with the Akron Beacon Journal.
And they do a similar kind of,
They do a much
Work.
more detailed, where they basically interview, to the best of my knowledge, they basically send a questionnaire and people can send their responses back.
as a former candidate, I know that certain folks are encouraged to respond to surveys and other people are encouraged not to respond to surveys. In some cases, it's the party affiliation will share with candidates, do not fill out surveys from X, Y, and Z organization, or in other cases, it's do not fill out any surveys. Do you know whether there's any kind of activity like that in Hudson?
I can surmise, but I don't know for a fact that there is or not. I think it's a little bit unusual that we had so many people that didn't want to respond.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Excuse me. Thank you again to
Mhm.
what else I said. Quick follow-up on what was just asked. Did you have any contact with any of the, what, we could refer to as the other candidates who didn't respond? Did you have any contact with them after they didn't respond about their non-response?
I did not. I know one of the volunteers had said she was thinking about calling them, but I don't know if she did or not, but I did not.
And that was gonna be my next question. Are you aware of anybody who had follow-up with a follow-up with them as it related to responding to the survey?
Yeah, I know that one of the volunteers had said she wanted to do that and call them, but again, I don't know if she did.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your time.
Madam Chair, I have a few follow-ups. Since it's our case to prove, should have the right to finish a few four, which is normal. And typical. Just a few quick questions. Just want to look real quick at Exhibit 5 thing and looking at the ward-specific question, but kind of will follow up to Mr. Knight's. You got 4 candidates with check marks, 4 of them with question marks. See that?
Yes.
Now, the city of Hudson city council elections are partisan elections where somebody is indicated on the ballot as being a Democrat or a Republican, correct?
I think so. I don't know for sure. I'm not part of the election process.
Okay, I'll get that otherwise then. Thank you.
Nothing, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much for
Okay.
your time.
Should I leave these here?
Yes. Yes, leave those out.
All right, very good. Are there other witnesses?
I would call Scott Roofer. It's gonna be probably about less than 5 minutes, so.
Liar.
So double it. Did you get that on the record? You got it on the record.
Got 5 on the record too.
But Phil told me earlier, anything an attorney said, you always double the time.
All right.
At least.
Okay, very good. Proceed.
Need the oath?
Oh, I apologize. Yes.
I do.
Can you please state your name?
Scott James Roofer.
And you're a resident of the city of Hudson,
Yes, sir.
and you were a candidate for city council in the 2023 election, correct?
Actually, I was sitting on council.
You were in a,
correct,
and you were
yes.
also a candidate,
Apologize. Yes.
correct? Couple questions about this survey. Do you recall receiving an email from Clock Tower Collaborative with the survey?
I did receive emails. I don't remember exactly if it was Clock Tower, but if memory serves, it was. But it was to my city email address,
Okay.
which, we went through security training and phishing training that prevented us from wanting to or even participating in anything that had nefarious links. So that
And
was,
so you saw it as a political thing coming to your
Sure, that's-
governmental email account?
yeah, that's the wrong thing to do.
Okay, is that why you did not respond to it?
Correct.
Thank you there. If you can look at Exhibit 5, which is this mailer flyer.
Sure. Go ahead. I know.
Just want to look at the candidates there on board-specific questions.
Mhm.
And I'd asked the question, Ms. Howington said she didn't know. City council elections in the city of Hudson are partisan elections with political party designated on the ballot. Is that
Correct. You
correct?
could pull a party aligned ballot.
Correct. If you can look at the people who are on that Exhibit 5 on the ward questions, those with the check marks. Yes, the PD.
I'm gonna stop you there. Yes, I don't think he's got it yet.
I'm trying to fish through this.
Hey, thank you.
Want you to get ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Hartman's testifying anyway, it's fine.
There you go. This one.
That's okay. Thank you.
He can answer it anyways. He
I know the
doesn't-
answer.
Who needs the exhibit? Okay, if you can look at that, there's the ones with the check marks, Getz, that PD, Carino, Donovan, and Byrd. Are you familiar with what their political affiliations was in that election?
3 of the 4, I believe Donovan was Democrat, but he may have been independent.
Okay, but the other 3 were all of the same political party at
Correct.
least. And the ones with the question marks were those of the same but a different political party than the ones with the check marks.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions?
May I, Madam Chair? Good afternoon, sir. If you wanted to respond to that Clock Tower Collaborative survey, you could have answered it, couldn't you?
Well, you're not supposed to be doing anything political or campaign oriented on city emails.
You could have found out, you knew who was involved in the Clock Tower Collaborative, right?
Objection, are
Yeah.
you saying at the time or now?
Yeah, at the time you got the survey. All right. Yeah. So according to you, you got a survey and you were so aghast that it was a political communication to your government email. You just, can't do it, won't do it, right? If you wanted to reach out to the Clock Tower Collaborative at that point in time, you knew how to do that, right?
Probably.
Okay. So you could have reached out to Clock Tower Collaborative and said, hey, got your survey, happy to do it, not on government time. Send it to my personal Gmail or what have you, right? You
Mhm.
could have done that.
A lookalike to that survey had been sent by Hudson Life that was just straight from Hudson Life.
I'm sorry?
A lookalike to that survey had been sent by Hudson Life, that magazine.
Okay,
And the vast majority of all of us did fill that out.
okay,
But then the separate one came from Clock Tower Collaborative through our government email.
okay.
And
So,
that's why we didn't have any
okay, so,
response.
okay, fair. So your testimony, I just want to make sure I understand it. A similar survey to what was marked as, or excuse me, I guess wasn't marked, but what Mr. Hartman read off of his phone was also sent by Hudson Life. Is that fair?
I believe that's where it came from.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you for your time, Mr. Rupp.
Mhm.
No redirect.
Oh,
No, no, yeah,
Staying
yeah. I
under
was
the
a-
fire. Really staying under the fire. Good work. All right, questions from the commission?
Can I do one redirect?
Ah, man.
And it was, I think it was
It's
following.
not even gonna be one. It's gonna be.
No, it's kind of grass squash. With respect to this survey, did you ever receive a phone call from anybody on behalf of Clock Tower Collaborative?
No.
Kind of asking you why you didn't survey or what we could do?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, what's your name? sir?
Scott Roofer.
Sorry, I was getting.
I didn't want to not say your name. Thank you for being here.
Sure, thank you.
My question for you, you stated that Hudson Life sent out a similar survey. Did you complete that one?
I did. Filled it out. It came to me personally.
And when you say similar, that makes me believe that the questions were very aligned and the same.
I don't remember the exact questions, but it was a survey. And to Ms. Hollington's point, some of the same topics came up because they were being fostered by League of Women Voters, other community activation groups. So those were topics that came up regularly for us on council.
So there were a multitude of people with the same issues and concerns, and they were doing duplicate
Correct.
surveys or similar. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? I do have a question. Speaking to that, coming to the government email and then having a similar survey that's printed in a similar or a publication where like entities are publishing, was it the assumption or the feeling or the experience of the candidates that that was intentionally done to make you assume that you had completed it unique and distinctly outside of that request that came into your inbox?
That was my gut feeling.
Okay, so we heard a question of could you find it, but did it seem to you that you had completed the survey or the intention of the survey as it was received?
Just because the two of them were similar, they were not the same.
Right.
So, and they came from two different sources. Well, let me strike that, I guess. I never saw the collective or the Clock Tower Collaborative survey because I never opened that link. So I only saw the one from Hudson Life, and then I saw that mailer subsequently. And that's how I knew they were similar. Does that make sense?
Okay. Okay, so you're saying you received on the government time, you also received another survey, answered that questionnaire, then saw a follow-up publication of survey results that looked very similar to a survey you had completed.
Right.
So maybe the assumption being you felt like you already answered something similar, but you would have known. I think the question that was posed was basically putting the onus on you to track down a survey to fill out
Right.
because it was sent to the wrong email. I guess just interesting dynamics. I'm trying to wrap my head around the relevancy, but also maybe the intentionality of why so many had empty responses. And so another question I would ask is, are these broken down essentially by party on the response, or is there a blend of Republicans and Democrats that are responding to these questions as they're laid out in the survey?
We're looking at number 5 again. So they are broken down by ward. There is no indication on this particular item of a Democrat or a conservative, but they are, I mean, if you live in Hudson, you know who they are.
Right,
Pretty
so
much.
my question is pretty direct. Are all of the check marks one party and all of the question marks or unanswered questions a different party?
Yes, sorry, I misunderstood.
No,
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, I apologize. That's helpful. And I guess, do we know if all recipients that were sitting members of council received them in the same form of their government email? I guess that's not a question that you likely could answer directly, but it would be interesting, I think, to find out.
Well, one thing that I could add to that is our phone numbers are published on our city website, so we wouldn't be hard to find.
Very good. That's all the questions that I have on this.
Here, I have one.
Sure, just Renee.
One, I guess. One, I guess, level of granularity deeper, to the chair's question. Are the issues in, the survey, are they divisive partisan issues? Could we expect the vast majority of the ones that are checked would be X's from the other party? And I don't know which is which. So I'm independent. I'm not claiming to know which is which. But there are question marks. Would you anticipate all of the majority of them would be X's, or they'd also be check marks, or a mix of some sort?
There would be a mix of some sort. Primarily the municipal broadband program that had already been legislated to a certain degree. We were moving forward on that program.
Okay.
We were having active conversations on council about advocating for supportive businesses and filling empty storefronts. There was a divide between how that should happen going forward, but we were actively talking about it. And it was, there were people at the podium pretty much every week speaking on these topics. So I would say it's 50-50.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
May I ask one additional question? On this exhibit D or 4, however you want to look at it, and this, are the respondents all of one party?
Yes.
I apologize, the respondents and also the candidates highlighted, are they all of one party?
Yeah, what exhibit? Complaints exhibit 4.
Yeah.
But that's in life.
The answer is yes.
Okay, so there are no independents or none of either opposing party. It's all one-sided.
Correct. With Mike Donovan being the write-in after Macchione had withdrawn.
Okay.
I just had the question, Claire, are we talking just the city council candidates or also the school board candidates? If you have step up?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be
I just wanna make
interested in
sure.
all of them, just out of curiosity,
Board's the same.
all one-sided. Okay. No, all right, thank you.
Madam Chair. Go ahead, Vice Chair. So then I have a follow-up question, Mr. Rupper. I thought, you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Mr. Hartman said it, but I thought that someone stated that Donovan was an independent.
I'm not exactly sure of his alignment. He's either a Democrat or an independent, but he's not on the Republican ticket.
But he could be an independent, I thought is what was stated.
Possibly. I mean, I don't remember exactly. He came to the race very, very late.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And if I may, and Macchione, I plugged up, I got the person that dropped out that he kind of been replaced.
Yeah, by that write-in by Mike Donovan.
What was the one that dropped out?
What was Macchione's part?
Was he of the opposite party?
No, he was a Democrat.
Okay,
I
thank
know
you.
which-
I'm trying to blind,
I got you.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to blind it, but thank you.
Just ask Mr. Knight. All right, sorry. All right, very good. Very good. All right, are there any other questions?
If there aren't, Madam Chair, if I might ask a couple questions.
Sure.
Sir, I'm a little confused. Did you open the survey from Clock Tower Collaborative or not?
No.
So you have no idea what it says. You never opened it.
Correct.
If you had opened it, for example, and were asked the question, do you support additional city investment for expansion of velocity broadband throughout Hudson? Would you have answered yes or no?
I would have answered no.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You said broadband?
Yeah, let me.
Oh, I
read it
would have
again.
said yes for that. I did
Okay,
say yes
so-
for that.
Okay, so had you opened the survey, you know, and completed the survey, you'd seen that question, for example, you said sure, and your name would have showed up here and you would have had a little checkbox next to your name, right?
Yeah.
Okay, nothing further. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay,
I don't take a break before closing in deliberation.
yes, we can take a 5-minute break because I think it's.
I'd just like to be sure, yes,
Once he's done.
gentlemen, before, just to confirm logistics, before we break, any more witnesses?
I was only gonna ask Ms. Hagan with a question about other.
Well, no,
I'm gonna,
just to this question first. Are there going to be
I
any?
can offer one more to answer one question that Ms. Hagan had.
Okay.
If you want, if it's important, I'm not sure. Chris Foster is here. He's also on city council. He can say whether or not he got the email on his city council account. If it's, I don't think it's important, but
And from respondents' perspective, any witnesses?
no, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can say what.
So how do we?
But anyway, I'll give a shit.
Okay, yeah, let's just take
I don't-
5, take 5. Sorry, thank you, and thank you for your understanding and grace.
Am I done or the?
You're good.
How long is it going to take trying to offer closing and going?
Well, no, how long is deliberation?
Yes, ma'am.
So Mr. Roper actually done, no more.
No more witnesses.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't think.
Thanks for cleaning up all this.
I think, you guys could talk forever. You say I talk.
Yeah, boy, there's a pot in the kettle.
You say I talk brutal.
But that,
No, I gotta get on my hotel.
What's that?
I gotta get on my hotel. I gotta leave check out.
Oh, yeah, where you at?
Westfield.
Oh, okay.
So I-
Talk, Mr. Hartman.
yeah.
No, I want you to talk, but not too much, so I can get to my hotel.
Oh,
Unless you,
Oh, no. We're gonna be here for hours.
you're gonna be, I know you now, you're deliberately gonna talk.
I think someone who is in support of getting rid of the commission said they had an issue with commissioners leaving early or having hard stops.
Oh, I did hear that. You're right, someone didn't.
You don't get a hard stop.
Yeah.
We're following the rule. Well,
Hey,
it's not
if he's,
in the
you
rule.
know, I mean, it's not even that hard. I mean, if you gotta buy another night, you know, why would you want to stay? Why would you want to go home to Cincinnati when you can stay?
I'm in the
Columbus?
presidential suite.
Are you?
They,
I stayed- I stayed- I stayed-
no,
are you
no,
really?
no, no, I really, here's.
That's where I stayed after my wedding.
I check in, okay, I get a
Yeah.
group, I get an upgrade. We
Yeah,
can
yeah.
climb.
Right.
Okay, so I go, it's like a little mini suite.
Yeah.
I go in there, but the bellhop's bringing we open the door, go,
Mhm.
there's clothes in there, there's a laptop. It's like somebody's in my room.
Wait, what hotel did you stay
The
at?
Westin.
I knew that's what he was talking about. That's where I stayed up until 3 months ago. I was just staying there for a year and a half, and I get the presidential suite. And I left.
It's a dated presidential suite.
Yeah, very dated, but for the.
It was dated when I got married almost 20 years ago. you
Well,
know?
so let's go back down, we go back down.
But I know.
Somebody's in my, we don't know who that is. Well, I'm the only room they have available.
Wow.
I once, and what it was, some corporate guy had come in, somebody had checked him in, but didn't put him in the system. Because I went down, I said, I gotta know what happened.
I had that happen to me in Chicago at the Palmer Mills.
Yeah.
And there, I mean, this thing was like bigger than the house I lived in. I mean, it's
The last time I
twice the
stayed
size of
there,
my first.
I get a notice in the valet parking that I'm illegally parking in the parking.
I get so many emails.
They
That was at
had, the
least.
system had screwed up and they were sending letters out to people who valeted, that you're in this parking lot illegally and I'm calling and and I got the threatening debt collector.
They fired, I don't know why I know this, they fired their GM yesterday, the new GM who had just come in.
Oh, really?
So I think,
That may have been part of why.
well, I also wrote a very strong letter about a month and a half ago, so.
But did you like, it's been okay. I mean,
I mean, it's a very old hotel, but I've been staying there for a year and a half and the staffing, customer service is what I'll say, has changed.
where I just
greatly.
stayed last time I was up here was, what is it, right across from the Supreme Court? Because that's now a Marriott.
It's a double tree.
No, it's a Marriott now.
Oh, is it?
Marriott. It's still dead. They're gonna be renovating it. But actually, I got a nice, it was a regular room. It was a suite.
Right. All right, we're back. You want to go ahead and call last witness?
Do you need Mr. Foster just to come up and say, yes, he got it on his government email account? I mean, that would be all he would
I
say.
will stipulate for the sake of time that if he were called, he would say what?
That the survey was also sent to his government email account as a sitting member of city council. So I don't need a call here. So I just want to.
So you've rested
I've rested.
and you rested?
Subject to exhibits, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, move all the exhibits,
Well, move an entry of the.
move all the exhibits, no objection.
No problem with any of them. The only thing I did want to bring up, and I mentioned it to Chris during our break, there are it looks like complainants 1 and complainant 6, complainant 7, those are bank records, checks, would ask that the account numbers be redacted.
No, no objection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right,
Yeah.
very good.
I was talking about it.
It came up with Commissioner Fairway earlier, and it's a valid point, so.
Okay. Okay, simple question before we're back on the record. Okay. Simple question before the commission is, was the primary major purpose of Clock Tower Collaborative in 2023 to support any candidate? I think the evidence clearly, if not definitely by preponderance of the evidence, demonstrates as such. Yeah, I've kind of reminded a little bit about the Corsi case, which I think predates everybody on the commission, about, you know, a single individual being engaged in kind of informational type stuff and becomes declared a public political action committee as well. So I think the commission should take that into consideration. But let's look at the simple evidence. And one thing I kind of make a note here, find my note, is, you know, one thing you tell a jury in jury instructions is you bring your common sense to the room. You don't leave your common sense at the door. And I'm finding this case kind of, oh, it's so many coincidences, you know, coincidences that our 4 candidates just happen to be the ones who return the survey, happen to be the only ones who we get these little check marks by. Our 4 candidates, and this is occurring in July and August at the outset. And, you know, how many coincidences do there have to be before it becomes fact? And really, I think there's questions of credibility is there. You know, let me get into this capacity thing. One thing, as an individual, I was doing this, but as Clock Tower, I was doing this. Think about that. Think about the precedent you're going to be setting. If somebody can say, I'm doing one thing in this capacity with a organization, and then I'm going to take that hat off and do another. I'm running a campaign. I have a campaign treasurer. What's my treasurer doing? I'm doing this as the treasurer of the campaign. But when I'm over here talking to this group, a political action committee or wherever, I'm no longer the treasurer. I've taken my treasurer off. So what we're doing is not a coordinated effort between the political action committee and the campaign, because I'm not the treasurer. I'm doing it in my individual capacity, not my capacity as the treasurer. And if you allow somebody to come in here and say, I'm in this capacity, that capacity, I got this hat on, that hat on, you're going to set up a back door for coordinated efforts with campaigns to occur when people start saying, I wasn't the treasurer then, I was just an individual. So I hope that makes sense. I mean, you know, Ms. Caraway, when you were with OROC or ORA, whatever the name of the organization was, you had to be careful about everything you did. It wasn't like, okay, I'm now the executive director, but now I'm not. You are. And in this case, Ms. Howington was clearly running, leading, the coordinator, whatever terminology you want to be, of this organization. That is the latest July in Exhibit 2, you know, is saying our candidates. I'm sorry, when she says this was an individual email, not a clock tower, that defies logic. It defines credibility. Look at the language used. You know, we are planning a gathering, our candidates. You know, please meet our ward candidates. You know, Getz, the Padini, Carino, Marchand, and Berg. And it's been consistent throughout. A week later on August 6th, when she concedes that email is clock hour only because the title says news from the collaborative. Again, our four candidates. Here's what we're doing. And so that shows the guys, the design, the intent from the beginning of what was going on to support these candidates. You know, interestingly, you look at that exhibit 3, the addressees. It's not sending it to all candidates, the addressees. No, it's sending to our four candidates. If this was really informative, if this was really just to educate and promote participation, I would submit you send that email to everybody who's filed for Hudson City Council. You send it to everybody who's filed for Hudson School Board. But it wasn't done. It's common sense of what is or is not there. So by late July, early August, they have our candidates. They haven't sent the survey out. The survey didn't go out until late August, early September. And coincidence, who returns them? Our four candidates. It's interesting to be saying one, I think what we have here is trying to say one thing publicly. Oh, we're an information thing. We just want to help people become informed. So saying one thing publicly, but doing something totally different in private. And you see what's going on privately when you see these emails. And the culmination becomes exhibit 4, the Hudson Life organization. You know, this was just information, but what is it saying? These are the candidates who endorse civility over confrontation and collaboration over control. Let's be logical. Let's use our common sense. What candidate for public office, if asked, is not going to say, I am for civility over confrontation. I am for collaboration over control. They didn't ask those questions. They didn't ask that question to all candidates. They didn't even ask it to our four candidates. But what they published on the eve of the election in Hudson Life is clearly supporting the candidates, the four candidates for city council. They were named back in, with the exception of the write-in, but they were named back in July, and it has been a continual thread. We have been, they have endorsed this great concept. This who agrees with it? Everyone agrees with it, but we're doing it. What does that imply? Candidates who aren't here don't support that, don't endorse it. It's doing one purpose and one purpose only. So I would just say, use your common sense, take sense of reality. The fact that they may have not done distribution of yard signs, they may not have done, this practice sessions with it, the common thread from the beginning has been our four candidates, culminating in the publication in November of those who endorse civility. Stuff happens between the formation in March or April to November. It was all election related. And it was all election related to our four candidates. Even the one thing that finalizes the write-in mailer, it's telling them you have this write-in candidate. Oh, we don't want to tell you who's seeking a write-in candidacy. That did nothing to support the candidate whose name was on the ballot. That did everything to support the candidate who was running as a write-in. But for that, would people know there was even a write-in candidate? It wasn't a fair piece. It wasn't an equal piece. It was advocating doing a write-in vote. Use your common sense. The evidence clearly by preponderance at a minimum demonstrates this was an unregistered PAC. Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, ladies and gentlemen, I would submit that Mr. Hartman has to frame his argument as an appeal to common sense because it doesn't square with the actual words that are used and the facts that have been laid before you. He says, oh, well, there are all these coincidences. These aren't coincidences. They are part of this test of primary major function exists for a reason. It's put in the statute by a General Assembly. for a reason, and that reason is to help protect a balance between constitutionally protected expression, which includes the right, as it came up, which includes the right to, under appropriate circumstances, anonymous participation in things. And, you know, Mr. Hartman says, oh, I would do it differently. You know, you can't be about civility because you didn't even ask a question about civility. Well, Mr. Hartman doesn't get to judge. And respectfully, this commission doesn't get to judge the wisdom or the effectiveness of a campaign or a particular survey question. That's not the test. The test is, what's the primary or major purpose? And Mr. Hartman stops at November, and he has to stop at November because that's when the election is. But he ignores multiple pieces after the fact. He ignores, I guess it's in Exhibit 6 is the collection of bank statements. You'll see continued activity, continued expenditures, and continued, certainly at least continued outflows and possibly continued inflows post the election. If this is a disguised election activity, then none of that happens. If this is some kind of a de facto, I don't know what the allegation is, whether it's a de facto arm of a political party or a de facto arm of candidate campaign committees. I'm not sure what the theory is here, but if that were the case, then all this stuff stops come November. Because we already know that, you know, the election's done and dusted, the outcome's settled. You know, there's a lot made of this, you know, we and our, and, you know, I can't possibly imagine that it's a productive use of the commission's time to police the grammar used in an email. You know, the royal we is a thing. It is used by people. I can't, you know, we can't possibly have a case turn on, you know, we versus I. We hear about, you know, you know, it's a coincidence, according to Mr. Hartman or his presentation, that, you know, there are all these intentions, things that Ms. Howington said she intended to do and ultimately didn't do. Nothing unusual, nefarious, or even uncommon about that. I intended to wake up and go to the gym today, but I didn't, and I'm just as rotund as ever. So intention and reality don't always have to square up. That's why they're called intentions. They're inherently predictive. This issue of different capacities, of course, people have different capacities. I am here representing Ms. Howington. I was here earlier this morning representing a different candidate in a different case. It is not the case that everything I do from here on out is on behalf of Ms. Howington. That's not the way the world works. So that you know, this concern of you know, this concern that's raised over the backdoor coordination or I'm not sure what the parade of horribles is, but this concern is appropriately dressed in another case. It's not appropriately dressed in this one. At the end of the day, similar to what I said this morning, the test remains primary or major purpose. You have a collection of activity, some of which I don't think crosses a line, but let's say it did. Let's say you looked at Exhibit 4, for example, which has the list of names and the reference to endorsement for civility. Even if I accepted Mr. Hartman's position as the truth, which I don't think it is, but even if you accept that position, that's one thing out of several. That's not primary, that's not major. The reason we use the words primary or major in the statute is to allow for the possibility that there is something that amounts to an effort to promote or oppose a candidate, promote or oppose an issue, and doesn't automatically kick everybody over into the PAC disclosure and compliance realm. So with that said, I think the evidence on balance warrants dismissal, and that's what I would urge the commission to do. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
There we go.
There.
It's like playoff music at the
Been here too long,
at the
is what
award
it's saying.
show.
This is bringing you good.
We did.
Yeah, I think they've got about a 4-hour battery
You know
life.
what? Thank you very much.
We lost it hours
Appreciate that.
ago.
All right, are there any questions of the commission members?
Just closing-
Questions or deliberations?
Any questions for the closing statement?
No.
Yeah, all right. Okay, all right, very good. Would you like to deliberate?
Yes.
Okay. Turn your mic on, sir.
Well, I can't turn my.
Oh, well, let's figure.
Okay,
All right, so,
we should confirm though that at least the matter's been concluded from a
yeah,
Yes.
presentation standpoint.
Yes.
It has for responded. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
go ahead. Okay. So I think, hopefully we'll hear from multiple commissioners, but, where I'm at here is I think, this group of citizens, obviously had an agenda, civic involvement, et cetera. However, I feel in multiple places, they went up to the line, and then on a few occasions, I think they crossed it of being an unregistered PAC. And so my position is that there has been a violation, and it does warrant financial sanction, although very small financial sanction. And so I just wanted to throw that out there and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I agree, at least with the underlying premise. I'd asked Mr. Richter for a range as it relates to that monetary sanction.
I can hear you online.
No, well, certainly, I mean, if you look at the maximum fine amount, that could be very substantial considering the length of time involved here and the fact that, there's both a $500 per day and $100 per day fine amounts for the respective potential violations. And so it could be substantial, very substantial. I mean, because you're talking, what was it, March of 23 to now is essentially over 2 years. So that's 700 days. So the maximum could be very substantial, even a minimum could be substantial. But I would argue that we regularly address cases. And earlier today when we had all the various referrals to us from the Board of Elections, each one of those was at least 30 days late, and we imposed a fine of $50. And so I think that the commission has regularly, and that's something the commission has done since it.
Let me
began
clarify, if I could, just
operation,
to clarify here, if we were inclined to, based on precedent, we're inclined to find a PAC here that, and so the fine was warranted, what would precedent indicate would be inappropriate?
Considering that not only the group, but the individuals who are listed here are before the commission for the first time, that's kind of classically what we've done is $50 or $100, somewhere in that range. Certainly the time involved could come into play, but the time involved has been because we found we referred it for hearing, and now I've just kind of gotten around to setting it for hearing because of the other matters we have before us. So that's not necessarily their concern, right?
Yeah.
Right. I guess the only way that I would disagree with Mr. Caraway is that I think that the advocacy was a little more overt than subtle.
That's fair, Commissioner.
Madam Chair, if I may, I guess I'll take a different approach
Sure.
than my two colleagues, but I believe I had said this at the first pre-hearing, I guess, that we had, that I thought you did it 95% right. And I had a little problem, and the two areas where I have the problem is basically what we have is we have a 501c4. There is a lot of latitude and a lot of things they did under my understanding of 501c4s that were done properly. The two areas that I have a problem with was that the wearing of the two hats. Now, most of you know I have a background in unionism and being a labor leader for many years, and we have run independent expenditures more than once. And when we have done that, we literally put somebody, what we say, in a bubble. So even their office has a sign, this is a bubble. You can't go in there. We didn't want any kind of impropriety or pretense of impropriety. And that person he or she is not to talk with any staff or coordinate, even if they weren't. So they're over there. You don't bother them. And that's my understanding of independent expenditures and how they should be run, and what I've learned over the many years. So I have a problem with, and Mr. Hartman said this, I don't disagree, that you can wear one hat and another. I don't believe that's proper. I believe you're either one or you're the other. And in this case, the two hats I have an issue with. The second issue I have is dealing with the checks. I mean, clearly, whether or not Mrs. Howington thought they were for certain candidates, that they were not, I don't believe that you should have deposited those. I think those checks should have been sent back, because clearly it states who they're for and who they're responding, basically endorsing, in my opinion. So, but I would say that most of this, and I would argue on the other side that, when you first run an independent expenditure and she has had no prior knowledge of this or ever did this, it's very difficult to understand where the line is or where the line isn't. And I would disagree that some of the verbiage was improper. I think a lot of that, I could make arguments on most of them, that it is for educational or informational purposes, the way they were coined. So I think that should be at least a mitigating circumstance when we look at a penalty here, that it's her first time. There's no priors before us, and that it is a very difficult thing to run if you've never done this, in my opinion. Okay, so I would err that the penalty, if we go that way, would be pretty limited. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Lyle. Are there any other points of discussion?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Sparks, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, because it died. Madam Chair, thank you very much. I would agree with my colleague, Commissioner Lau, with respect to the discussion around the checks that were submitted. I probably wouldn't have deposited those, and probably shouldn't have deposited those checks with the notation in the memo line of who they were to support. I agree that we went close to the line and may have crossed the line with respect to a 501c4. I've been a part of a 501c4 national organization for almost 20 years. And, you have to be very clear. And as Mr. Lyle said, when you're first starting an organization, it is very difficult to understand the limits of what you can and cannot do. And, the language with respect to many of us use that in discussion. And so I'm not really as concerned about that, but I am concerned about the checks, and I'm concerned about, in some cases, the communication that added the names of candidates in the 501c4. So, but again, I would agree with Mr. Lyle. I think the penalty should be mitigated by some of the other discussions that we've had.
Commissioner Tavares, are there any other points of discussion?
Chair.
Sure thing.
Thank you to all the commissioners who've already spoken. So I would agree. I think the checks are the thing that caused me great pause. But I will say, as everyone else or you two have shared, that it is very difficult to understand what to do, which is why we have the Ohio Elections Commission. You weren't a national organization. You were a group of citizens in a small community advocating for what your morality is and what you believe in. And so I do not believe that there was a malicious intent. I believe that there was naivety. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're not responsible for that, But I do believe that we need to consider that if we are going to move forward with that. I mean, again, she's openly acknowledged that the 2 emails were sent, and after that, after she was pulled back, we have no evidence that there was any other communication. So it sounds like immediately once she realized that she had overstepped the line or gotten to the line, wherever we want to place her, that she immediately stopped at that point. And for me, that says that there was no true intentionality in being malicious or manipulative in any way. So, thank you.
Okay, very good. One other thing I would bring to a point of consideration is if there is a fee or fine being discussed or decided upon as you all motion, a time consideration might be appropriate if it's not based off of the precedent of that 50 or 100 to limit it at when this case first started, because I think I recall I had a baby in tow who is now 2.5 years old. And so we would not want for that to be the measurement of time for the award of that.
And Madam Chair, my thinking was a flat, no, the per diem or per day rate would not be appropriate, particularly with the amount of time that had passed.
All right, and based off of precedent today, when you tell me what you're thinking, is that a motion?
So, Madam Chair, you've done that to me a couple of times today.
First.
Look, so my opinion is that this rises above a level of a simple $50 fine. Okay. I am comfortable. I'm just going to throw out a few numbers. If somebody wants to make a motion, fine, I'll second it. I am in the $150 to $250 range, because I do believe that it is not a standard $50 violation.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would disagree with my colleague. This is the first violation. They've already terminated the organization. The time that has lapsed has not been their fault. And our standard procedure has been find a violation and $50 fine. I don't believe $150 is warranted in this kind of a case, and particularly since they've already dissolved the organization.
I was just, thank you, Commissioner. I was just discussing with the executive director the fact that the organization has been dissolved of sorts. So the next step being, would it be the fine in isolation or the establishment of PAC paperwork for a non-existent entity, which wouldn't be logical? So I was asking Phil if he would address that particular piece.
Yeah, certainly my recommendation, first off, my recommendation is, depending on where this conversation is heading, deliberations are heading, would be declare the group a PAC under 351701C8. But then to, as a penalty to declare a specific fine amount, we declare the committee terminated as well. Also, I don't believe that at this point it would be necessary to obligate them to recreate a committee, file a designation, file any subsequent reports, that we can declare them to be in compliance, particularly with all the materials that were submitted to us in terms of what the bank account provided, because Mr. Hartman had, got that information from the bank. And so essentially the financial arrangements have been submitted to the commission as part of the findings here. So I hope that helps give a little bit of or clarity here.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure, Commissioner.
So I guess I'm a little challenged with that in that, I mean, the point is not for the Ohio Elections Commission to fill in forms. The point is to be, I thought, transparent for the citizens of Ohio. And if this is a PAC, then the donors to that PAC should be listed on the various reports that are required. Otherwise, we're missing the transparency. That's the whole point of the function of reporting. So I would be strongly against just not requiring reporting post this if we find them to be a PAC.
Against the requirement. It's
I would be against not having that requirement. I would be in favor of that for transparency to the taxpayers of Ohio.
so. Would you like to respond to that?
Well, I mean,
Your
that's certainly,
Oliva's
that's
concern?
certainly possible. If that's what the commission would obligate the respondents to do. I'm not arguing that point. It's just with the organization having already been shut down, my comments were related to the fact that we here at the commission have received a lot of, I presume, all the financial information for the organization from contributions to expenditures in what was submitted to us. And so that information has been provided to essentially, obviously through us, to the public.
Can be publicly.
Yeah,
requested.
but I mean.
But not all of it.
If there's some
100%.
citizen of Ohio, they're gonna go, if they, and look at the reports, they're not gonna know to call the OEC and ask for, the documentation provided at this hearing, which they would probably not even know ever happened.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Mr. Knight. I guess if they're closed, you're suggesting then that, and there is no money, right? Because the money is in the CD that she can't touch. If they open it
You
back
couldn't
up.
touch it.
Well, she could with the penalty.
That was a small penalty, yeah.
Well, it's not that much money anyway, but to open it back up and to do reporting from 2020, this was 2023, correct? And 2024, which it would still have to, you guys would still have to report for 2025 because technically you couldn't be closed until after reports for 2025 are done. Is that correct? So it'd be like 2.5 years worth of reporting
Well, they would file termination reports.
after this.
They would file a termination report as, I guess potentially after this, but as a, when the funds were taken out of the account, eventually.
But they would still have to go back and file 2 years worth of
23, yes.
23 and
Mhm. Correct.
24 is when it was closed, correct?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Richter, obviously they filed their termination with the Secretary of State as it relates to the incorporation, but they could walk into the Summit County Board of Elections, right? Summit County? No, Stark.
Summit.
Summit.
Summit, okay.
They dissolved it and started.
They could walk into the Summit County Board of Elections and file Clock Tower Collaborative, fill in the reports of the expenditures and contributors, and then file a termination. I mean, it's probably 5, 6, 7 hours worth of work, but
Mhm.
it could be, the DOT could be filed. They could file the necessary disclosures the commissioner talked about, and then file a termination, and they're done.
That could definitely be done, yes. And I've had conversations, not exactly on this particular, but I've had conversations with the staff at the Summit County Board. Not that they regularly get something like this, but that they'll work with a candidate or a campaign committee to help them resolve their filing situation and take, what you're talking about as a sufficient report.
Okay. I was,
Okay, very good. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Kirschner.
I'd hope to narrow the issue just a bit. That's some brief conversation on our end. I'd like to make a motion, not to resolve the entire thing, but to find 2 things. I think there are 3 elements to this. 1, whether or not there's a violation, 2, whether or not there's a PAC, and 3, the fine. I'd like to make a motion to find a violation and to make a declaration that Clock Tower was a PAC under 3517.01 C8. So 1, violation, 2, a PAC. We can move to the fine after that, but that would be my motion if I'd get a second.
May I ask for clarity? Are you declaring that they were a PAC and that they need to file as a PAC, or we're just defining that they were operating as a PAC and that is to be known by the public?
So the relief that was requested was a violation that they be found to have to be a PAC, because the primary relief that's requested, we seem to have a bit of lack of clarity up here on the fine amount, which may be a different discussion, but I'd at least like to narrow the 2 main issues. So I would move that we find a violation and that there's a PAC under the relevant statute 3517.01C8. And then we could debate the fine amount after that.
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
Very good.
And- Just a discussion, on that motion. I agree with the motion as long as we're not saying that they have to go back and file reports. Because the fine is that you should have. And there is a violation. But to go back for 2.5 years, no, I would not agree with that. So for those that have made the motion and the second.
I also wanted to request a point of clarity. So as you're asking for the PAC language to be established, also is that in conjunction with the termination? So
Right.
basically, we're asking for a window of PAC creation, and I'm saying it slightly different than you, Chairwoman, or I apologize, former Chairwoman, Commissioner Tavares, in that it would be for a very limited scope, mirroring their existing paperwork for that time period versus the full 2.5 years of having to file through to date. Does that make
Oh.
sense? Sorry.
If you're saying that you're asking them to file some paperwork now, no, the violation is, in my opinion, that they should have been registered as a PAC, but not going back in history because they've dissolved, not going back in history and creating a PAC now and now filing all of the paperwork. No, I was not agreeing to that.
And if I, just for the sake of clarity, Phil, could you clarify what you believe would be the appropriate motion? Obviously, that there be a violation and a PAC created to address these issues.
Right. I mean, what I thought I heard at least was a violation as reflected in the complaint of 351710D, a 13, which are the filing statutes for violation there, but a declaration that it is a PAC. I don't think anything went further as
That's
it
right.
relates to filing anything or a fine amount imposed. So all we have before us is a declaration that it was a PAC and the fact that there was a violation of the statutes. I think that's all, to me, that's all that was put before us at this point.
And seconded.
And second. And so, we would still have to determine, again, with all due respect to your arguments, whether filing should be made and an amount of sanction.
Okay. Fair enough. So we're doing partial part motions. We
Correct.
have a motion and a second. You all understand? Okay, very good. All in favor?
We want.
Restate it, please.
Yeah, you can do a roll.
Restate your motion. His motion is essentially that,
Quite straightforward, that there was a violation as requested in the complaint. And that there's a declaration that Clock Tower was a PAC pursuant to 3517.01 C8, the governing statute. If we want to do a roll call on that, Bill, I think that would be fine.
That's fine. If everybody's ready for a roll call, Ms. Tavares,
Yes.
Mr. Caraway,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
No.
Mr. Lyle,
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner,
Yes.
Chair Hagan.
yes.
That motion passes 6-1.
Okay, very good. All right. Continued deliberation apparently for round 2.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for a fine of $50.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation? Oh, seeing none, do you want a roll call again or are
I
we
think we
for
should do a roll
consistency?
call again on that. Yes. Second. Ms. Tavares,
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner,
No, because I would have a higher amount.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
No.
Mr. Caraway,
Yes, because I believe in consensus.
Mr. Lyle,
Yes.
Chair Hagan.
No.
No.
That motion passes 4-3.
Are you trying to get there and goes?
They don't endorse. They do
That's
not-
right, that's right.
They do not endorse. We're forcing them into being a PAC. They do not endorse.
All right, very good. I think that,
You go address the paperwork or no paperwork?
yeah.
No paperwork. No paperwork. Okay, I was gonna say, it's a de minimis number of contributions, de minimis
He didn't care anyway.
All right.
You got the answers. That's all you wanted.
Very good. Thank you all for your time, your energy,
Thank you.
your efforts.
Thank you, ladies.
Have a wonderful day.
I would move to adjourn the meeting.
Second. All right, motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
That is definitely unanimous. Have a good day.